My brother was always the favorite until he decided to steal everything from me. He thought he had won, but I was already preparing his downfall. This wasn't just revenge. I was planning to destroy him. But let's start from the beginning. My name is Jake. I'm 25 years old, and I have an older brother, Tom. He's 30, and let's get one thing straight from the start. Tom is that golden boy who, no matter what, always ends up on top of the pyramid. You know what I mean. The family with the golden child, who, even if he stumbles, falls onto velvet cushions. That's Tom, and not just golden. He's practically a sacred cow to our parents. You won't believe it, but he's not just the favorite. He's perfect in every way. Every little thing he does fills them with awe. It's as if he's not just my brother, but some kind of mini Elon Musk, just without the billion-dollar fortune. And me? I'm the guy people talk about saying, he could have been better. Right in front of my parents' eyes, I've always been the disappointment that came after their perfect firstborn. No matter what I do, I'm always in the shadow of his achievements. Literally like a supporting actor in a movie where Tom is the star. Okay, maybe I'm exaggerating, but only a little. You can't imagine what it's like to always have your successes overshadowed just because he's older and knows better. Recently, I had the chance to shine. I worked like a madman on a project. I lived and breathed that project, you know? I fine-tuned every single detail, every number, every presentation. This was supposed to be my moment of glory. I didn't just want to prove what I was capable of. I damn well wanted that long overdue promotion. I could already picture myself sitting with a new business card, proudly showing off my title, higher than Tom's. Maybe, just maybe, it would make my parents look at me with pride for once, instead of like a lost puppy. But, that would have been too easy, right? As always, Tom showed up with his perfect smirk. And you know what? He took my project and claimed it as his own, like it had been his idea all along. He didn't even bother to change anything to at least make it look like he had done some work. No, he just walked in and said, "This is my work." And you know the worst part? They believed him. My damn boss looked at him like he was the savior of the company. I watched as all those people who hadn't even known my name a month ago started bowing down to Tom like he was some sort of messiah. So there I stood, watching as my older brother stole my life once again. And in that moment, I knew it was enough. I'd had it. This was the final straw. He crossed the line. He didn't just steal my project, he stole my chance to step out of his shadow. And I decided he wouldn't get away with it. I would take revenge. And not just enough to make him uncomfortable for a few days. No. I was going to make sure Tom never rose again. I would do it on such a grand scale that he would be left lying in the dirt where he belonged. The day started like any other. The office was buzzing with its usual atmosphere. People rushing around, trying to look busy. I was sitting at my desk, slowly sipping a cup of coffee that had already gone cold, when I felt a strange tension in the air. You know that feeling when something's off, but you can't quite figure out what it is? That's exactly what I felt. About an hour passes, and I hear a conversation coming from Mr. Gray's office. Honestly, I wasn't even planning to eavesdrop, but something in my boss's voice caught my attention. It was something like triumph. I paused and quietly moved closer, trying to overhear what they were talking about. And guess what I heard? Tom. Damn it, Tom again. They were discussing his project. Question. Since when did it become his? I know everything going on in this company, and I definitely know he didn't have anything substantial that he could be discussing with Mr. Gray alone. Besides, Tom has never been involved in serious development. At most, he'd throw in a couple of ideas during a meeting and then fade into the background. And there was Mr. Gray, showering Tom with compliments. Brilliant approach. You're a true leader. Outstanding work. My jaw nearly hit the floor. They were talking about my project, but without me. Tom was confidently discussing all sorts of details as if he had led every meeting, tweaked every calculation, and planned every step. I felt like I was living in some kind of twisted nightmare. You know that feeling when the world starts crumbling beneath you? That's exactly what it felt like. And you know what's the funniest part? Tom didn't even glance in my direction as he walked past my desk. He felt so confident, so calm, as if it was his rightful place to be on top. Well, I didn't make a scene then and there. You see, moments like this require a cool head. Revenge plans aren't built on emotions. They're built on precise strategy. Inside, I was a raging storm, but on the outside, I remained calm. All I had to do was wait for the right moment to strike. I wasn't just going to expose him. I was going to crush his reputation so thoroughly that even his precious family wouldn't recognize the perfect little boy he's always been. Tom clearly started to suspect something. As they say, even people like him have a sixth sense when trouble, in his case, my revenge, is looming on the horizon. He began to notice that I was acting differently. You know how it is. I used to be able to smile at him easily, even if it was forced. But now, every time he came near my desk, my fists clenched so tightly my knuckles turned white. Maybe it was because I was silent and looked like I was ready to explode at any moment. But Tom suddenly started showing concern. The next day, he approached me with that fake smile of his, probably something he learned at some idiot's course on how to be a people person. "Hey, you doing okay?" he asked, drawing out the words as if I should be grateful he even bothered to talk to me. His voice was as empty as his ideas, and his eyes weren't shining with concern but with an attempt to read me, to figure out what I was up to. "Absolutely," I replied, trying to make sure my tone was cold enough to freeze him to his core. Icy, like a freshly made cocktail on a Friday night when you realize Monday is just around the corner. He stood there for a few more seconds, as if waiting for something more, but I just looked away. That was the signal. He left, but I saw how tense he was. Tom had started to suspect that I wasn't someone he could write off so easily. But this time, I was playing the long game. I didn't need to throw accusations on the table right away. No, my friends, this needed something bigger. The picture had to be so vivid that everyone would see. It wasn't just one brother being angry at another. It was a true genius exposing a small-time fraud who had spent his entire life riding on luck and the hard work of others. I started gathering information. It was almost like one of those detective movies, except instead of dirty evidence and chasing criminals, I had corporate documents, security camera footage, and of course, those little emails that Tom, in his usual way, thought were too small to pay attention to. This was my weapon. I knew that if I could tie all the loose threads together, I'd weave a web so tight that even Tom, with his golden status in our family, wouldn't be able to escape. Late into the night, I sat at my computer, combing through every trace of his schemes. It was hard work, but incredibly satisfying. The more I uncovered, the clearer my plan became. Tom was used to an easy life. He never looked deeper than he had to, and that was his weak spot. I took screenshots, pulled camera footage, checked logs. Little puzzle pieces started to come together. It was all too smooth to be a coincidence. I was getting closer to my goal. My patience was paying off. The week flew by too quickly, and people around the office started whispering. You should have heard the chatter in the break room. "Oh, Tom is about to get a promotion thanks to his brilliant project." Yeah, his project. He couldn't even find his own socks without someone's help, let alone put together a project. Everyone was gearing up for his big triumph, as if it were the Oscars for Best Actor and not just another corporate deal. But you know what? It didn't bother me anymore. Why? Because I was ready to make my first move. While everyone was gushing over his talent, I quietly worked in the shadows, preparing a little bomb for his grand debut. No bursts of anger, no impulsive actions, everything was calculated down to the finest detail. I had a plan. I swapped a few files in our shared folder. You know, the ones he was going to use for his big presentation to Mr. Gray and the whole team. It was almost like a chess game, except instead of pieces, I made strategic changes in the spreadsheets, graphs, and charts. Nothing too obvious to raise suspicion, but enough to turn everything into complete chaos when he opened them. And the sweetest part? No one would ever be able to trace it back to me. Genius, right? The morning arrived. Tom was on cloud 9, getting ready for his star presentation. He strutted around the office like he was about to win a Nobel Prize for best presentation. When he passed my desk, I couldn't resist a little jab. "Big day today, huh? Your time to shine." He shot me a quick glance, like I was just another fan eager to watch his show. Inside, I was boiling with smug satisfaction. I knew what was waiting for him in just a few minutes, and the anticipation was delicious. Tom had no idea that every step he took toward the conference room was a step toward total humiliation. The presentation crashed and burned so spectacularly that I'm pretty sure you could hear it beyond the office walls. Tom stood in front of everyone in the conference room, glowing like he was about to deliver something that would leave everyone speechless. And to be fair, that's exactly what happened. Just not for the reasons he was hoping. The moment he opened the file, it was clear that this was a complete disaster. The tables? A mess. The graphs? Gone, as if they had evaporated into thin air. Some slides were just blank, like his empty promises that he'd someday start doing something on his own. I sat there, watching as his expression shifted from confident to confused, then straight to full-blown panic. It was like watching a slow-motion train wreck. Impossible to look away. Mr. Gray sat in his chair, arms crossed, observing the whole spectacle with icy composure. His stare cut right through Tom. At one point, when the awkward silence filled the room, Gray finally broke it with his cold voice. "Is this your project?" The question didn't just imply doubt about the presentation, but seemed to question whether Tom was even capable of doing anything beyond strutting around the office with an air of importance. Tom started scrambling for excuses. Oh, it was amusing to watch. He looked like a scared rabbit cornered by a predator, trying to talk his way out. Word after word, but nothing coherent came out of his mouth. "This isn't what I prepared. The files must have gotten corrupted. Maybe there was a mistake." All his pitiful attempts to explain what happened sounded like bad excuses. His voice trembled, as if even he didn't believe what he was saying. Total disorientation. Mr. Gray didn't take his eyes off him, remaining completely silent. That silence. It was more brutal than any comment could have been. And that silence? It was killing him. In that moment I knew. This was just the first step. Tom had no idea that his downfall had only begun, and it was going to get much worse. I could feel his reputation tearing at the seams, and plans for my next strike were already swirling in my mind. If you're going to tear someone down, you might as well do it all the way, right? Tom was scrambling, trying to salvage the situation. But honestly, it looked like he was trying to fix a sinking ship with a teaspoon. Complete catastrophe. Every move he made was another nail in the coffin of his career. Colleagues who once looked at him like the company's savior were now glancing at him with obvious suspicion. He tried to keep his cool, but with his slowed movements and forced smile, it was clear. He was in full-blown panic. And me? I continued working from the shadows, like a ghost, unseen but dangerously effective. While Tom was dealing with his public humiliation, I was quietly doing my part, steadily and confidently. During my research, I stumbled across something very interesting. A small but nasty scheme that Tom had been running behind everyone's backs. He was screwing over clients. Yeah, folks, Tom wasn't just a corporate thorn, he was also a rat, siphoning off client money and funneling a portion into his own account. This was the trump card I'd been waiting for. I won't say it was easy to get all the evidence. It took some effort, breaking into a few protected files, pulling some records, and piecing together a few accidental email exchanges. When everything finally came together, I realized I didn't just have information in my hands. I had a bomb, the kind that would obliterate Tom's career into atoms. Of course, I wasn't just going to march up to management and hand over this data like some schoolboy showing off an A+. No. I knew I had to play it smarter. Anonymity was the key to success. I sent copies of the evidence to the internal audit department with a friendly little note. You might want to take a closer look at this. No hints pointing to me, no unnecessary traces. Everything was perfectly clean. If everything went according to plan, and in my hands, nothing ever went off plan, Tom wouldn't just fall from grace, he'd be completely ruined. Fired, disgraced, without a hope of recovery. And that would only be the beginning. Because sometimes, to truly defeat an enemy, you have to wait until they dig their own grave. A few days later, the office was buzzing with rumors. You know the drill. When you walk into the kitchen and there's already a group huddled together, gossiping over every detail. Only this time, the hot topic wasn't someone from accounting, but the one and only Tom, the great and mighty. The rumors that he had been suspended spread like wildfire. And trust me, not a trace of that golden boy was left. Everyone was talking about his alleged fraud and shady financial dealings. Classic office gossip. Everyone knew he'd done something, but no one could quite say what. And Tom? He looked like someone had sucked the life out of him, leaving only an empty shell. He walked around the office like a ghost, and when he passed by my desk, he didn't even try to meet my eyes. It was beautiful. I could barely contain my grin as I watched him get caught in the trap. He was no longer that smug guy who could snap his fingers and get anything he wanted. Now, he was the one losing everything in front of the very people who used to applaud him. Then came the moment of truth. He was summoned to Mr. Gray's office. Naturally, the whole office froze. The events played out like a scene in a movie, everyone waiting to see how the drama would end. Some people pretended to work, while others openly watched the door, hoping to witness the climax. Me? I casually strolled past his desk, feeling triumphant inside. It was impossible not to relish it. This was one of those rare moments when karma struck fast, and I was the lucky spectator. Half an hour passed. Honestly, I expected him to be out in about 10 minutes, but no, it was clearly a serious conversation. Finally, the door opened. Tom emerged, but this wasn't the Tom everyone knew. He was as pale as paper, with a completely vacant look in his eyes. He moved like a robot, as if broken on every level, physically and mentally. It seemed like one more step and he would collapse on the floor. This man, who had always been so sure of himself and his invincibility, was now just a shadow of his former self. I couldn't hold back my inner satisfaction. Tom had finally gotten what he deserved. He had no idea I was behind it all. But honestly, I didn't need him to know. The fact that his downfall was caused by his own arrogance and blind trust in his genius was reward enough for me. For the first time in his life, Tom had lost everything. Within just a few days, rumors of Tom's firing spread through the office faster than the latest meme on social media. It wasn't a secret anymore. Everyone knew that the great Tom, our once untouchable golden boy, had lost it all. But you know what? That was only the beginning of his fall. My meticulously planned revenge was working like clockwork. His firing was just the first blow, but I wasn't going to stop there. Soon, the news started leaking beyond the company. People he had spent years building connections with began cutting ties with him. It was like a snowball, growing bigger with every turn, destroying everything in its path. Tom tried to save face, but it was useless. No one trusted him anymore. His reputation, once unshakable, crumbled overnight. The people who had recently been willing to shake his hand now avoided him like a plague, acting as if they'd never even known him. Every day at the office felt like watching the next episode of a favorite TV series. People gossiped about his downfall over coffee, whispered about how far things had gone, and every time someone passed by his now empty desk, there was an unmistakable silence. That spot became a reminder that even the most successful can be destroyed in an instant, and it was incredibly satisfying. As for me, I just watched as my work came to its perfect conclusion. Tom hadn't just lost his job. He'd lost everything he ever had. His career, respect, connections, money. He was destroyed on every level, and no one was reaching out to help him. And I felt victorious. Pure icy triumph. It was cold, but oh, so sweet revenge.